Random data about firearms. Why am I doing this? I've been looking up a lot of information about guns and rifles and bullets and all sorts of stuff for a specific reason that I'm not going to reiterate. So let's just dump a bunch of extra fiddly bits around the fjords. If you know which movie that's from or book, it's a book originally, go ahead and say so. 1/2 inch or 50 caliber is approximately, these are all rounded off, 12.7 millimeter and 37 gauge. If you want to make something California compliant below 50 caliber and completely impossible to be declared a destructive device, shotguns are exempted because it's shotgun, you make it less than 1/2 inch by some measurement, and none of the measurements can add up to 1/2 inch anywhere in the barrel. If it's a shotgun you're making that's a weird thing like not a 37 gauge, let's say 38 or 39 gauge and 49 caliber, let's just call it that, nothing can be 1/2 inch. It cannot be anywhere near it. It has to be indisputably below 50 caliber, or it can be called a destructive device depending on what it is. A 12 gauge is 18.5 millimeter and 37 caliber, or from 18 millimeter to 20 millimeter and 71 caliber to 79 caliber, or 69 caliber at the muzzle. Shotguns have a variable bore. The bore diameter is based on the forcing cone right after the shell. None of these numbers actually match up. I've already done a video about it. But the equivalent sizing for a cartridge, well, we'll bring it up in a minute, but it's going to be kind of useless and kind of interesting and kind of useful. And remember, you can buy these as literally full brass shells instead of doing what I'm going to explain in a minute. 410 bore shotgun shells fit most 45 caliber Colt chambers, even though it's 41 caliber as declared as a shell, or excuse me, a shotgun, because that's the bore, you know, after the forcing cone, because this is a shotgun. You might not want to fire a 45 Colt down the barrel of a shotgun that's 410. Just saying. Again, you have to mic these things. You have to measure them. And the universal database for this that I've been trying to build is very difficult. A 12 gauge flare gun cartridge, the orange one that's longer than it's supposed to be, has an internal 55 caliber or 0.55 inch integrated diameter, 28 gauge, 14 millimeter interior diameter barrel, which is how you would measure it if you were looking up metal tubing or plastic tubing to make one. And yeah, I have a video I was going to do on this, but the other thing you can do with it, if you're not aware of it, is because of their shape, they physically, that's the same diameter as a AA battery internally, which is where they got the idea to make a little shot cup out of that they use for doing the pyrotechnic material, but that's another video. But because of that, you can put a full 3.5 inch length cartridge, empty shotgun cartridge, over the top of it and use one end for the button and the other end for the LED and make a flashlight out of it. I'm going to do that because I just noticed that. I noticed that when I first saw it. Also, I'd like to point out, for some reason, the little cylinders that are inside of your printout tape for a cash register, that little plastic tube sometimes fits it too, so you can use that as a sabot. But can you use it in a shotgun? Well, technically yes, but, well, anyway, here we go. Next, CO2 cartridges. Yes, technically they'll fit maybe one end or another of a shotgun. They won't fit all the ends unless you deliberately make not only a cylinder bore but an overbore shotgun for firing projectiles, actually a test barrel. This is a very difficult thing to make. You basically start off with a shotgun, a good one, and ruin it and turn it into something for firing Tauflader style objects out of, so that you cannot get a bore obstruction explosion. See also, don't use a duck gun. Next, 12 gauge 3-inch shells, rim diameter. That's the rimmed cartridge. If you look up Wikipedia site wikipedia.org space rim diameter, that's the actual words, and put in 0.886, you'll find a shotgun shell. You'll also find other shells that can be used as a substitute or a parent cartridge for explosively forming a 12 gauge shotgun gun shell if you want to. The base diameter is .809 or 81 caliber for the physical base, and the neck diameter at the end of a 12 gauge shotgun shell is 79.7 caliber, or almost exactly 80 caliber. So this hovers around the 80 caliber diameter, and it has an 88 caliber rim edge, if you want to call it that. That means from the center out, it's 44 hundredths of an inch, or, well, thereabouts. And to be on the safe side, the SAMI listing always uses the minimum size shell and the maximum size bore, or vice versa, depending on how you're doing your testing. If you design for these parameters, you want to stick to the SAMI rules so that they get really consistent over time. Yes, you can rebore a gun to do anything else you want. Most of these are plastic shells that are designed to squeeze in and not have too much squeeze to them. Next, make sure you put the right kind of shell in the right kind of bore, or chamber, excuse me, because if it's the wrong type, it will literally cause a bore obstruction and maybe, at best, hurt the gun. It's a lot of force very suddenly. Distance from base to shoulder and shoulder diameter for a 50 BMG is going to be brought up next. 50 caliber Browning machine gun cartridges. Base diameter is 80.4 caliber, 804 thousandths of an inch, or 20.4 millimeter. Now we're getting some weird numbers here. It's hovering around the 80 caliber mark right there, right? The rim diameter is the same thing. It does not have a rim on it. Yes, you can physically put it into a shotgun and fire it. Technically, it won't do anything terrible. It might fall forward into the forcing cone. The shoulder diameter, the diameter at shoulder, is .714, 71 caliber. The forcing cone diameter in a shotgun is based on the 12 gauge ball size. So you can get that information in your head. The distance from the base to the shoulder is 3 inches. So at that point, you have a starting point to make a brass casing shell. Or you could just buy them for 25 cents or 50 cents a pop. They've been left at the same price tag for literally 10 years from every company I know of that sells 12 gauge shotgun shells that are full brass, because of the fact that it's actually made to go into a 12 gauge and you can use it and you won't blow yourself to shit. Please don't do a BMG conversion thing, although you can. And I want to point out one more thing. Yes, it is technically possible to make an insert for a 12 gauge shotgun. It would have to be a breech loader that will take a 50 BMG bullet and give it the ability to fire it. It might even work without hurting you, but it would have to be customized to the gun, and it would have to be a shotgun that can take a 3-inch shell or larger, or longer, excuse me. They're based on how long the shell is when it's popped open. So that gives you an idea of the clear space for that shoulder space. So 3 inches or better. And yeah, you could make an insert or a set of inserts that would let you get away with doing this. I don't recommend it, obviously, but if you want to, you could make one. You'd have to make it out of literally drilling out a chunk of steel with one chamber and then milling it to fit into a specific gun. There is no such thing as a universal standard shotgun. The reason I'm bringing that up is someone actually tried doing this. I'm not giving you the video link. It's the guy just saying, this is what happened. All you see is a blast of smoke and fire. Don't do it. Neck diameter appears to be too large for a 50 BMG chamber. Rim will not fall through the 50 BMG chamber. Brass base is slightly larger than a 50 BMG cartridge in that same area. We're talking about doing the other way around, where you put a 12 gauge shotgun shell into a 50 BMG. You can use the brass casing as a parent cartridge for something. Not really, because again, it goes down to 50 caliber. Small enough that variances in the 50 BMG chamber size or 12 gauge shell size might allow it to partially fit in a chamber. If a 50 BMG chamber is just slightly smaller than a 12 gauge shell, when a 50 BMG cartridge is slightly smaller than a 12 gauge chamber. Okay, within variants you can get away with doing these back and forth. Brass casing only if you want to experiment. But again, you don't do these things because... But I thought I'd put that in there. I was asked by somebody, can you do this? And I'm just going to put it in the video here. 22 caliber long rifle. Is it the most popular or the most abundant parent case to work with? It's been converted over to 17 caliber bullets by necking them down. We also have 5.56 223 cartridges. They're 22. but their parent case is a bigger cartridge. 7.62 308 Winchester. Then we get 9mm Luger popularity contest, right? This is a copy of one. I'm going to do a different video on it, but I'm just throwing this out here because this is random data I want to dump on the net. Then we get 40 Smith & Wesson, 44 Special, 44 Magnum, 45 ACP, 45 Long Colt, 410 gauge, and then we get 20 gauge and 12 gauge. Is this the popularity contest? Or is it the diameter changes? Or is it the power levels? This is an organizational list of what is the most commonly sold bullets. This is what I'm trying to work out, because every source is completely different. I'm not going to be using sales sites that sell bullets, because they're lying. And if you're curious, 13/64 is approximately 22 caliber, but lots of people use 25 caliber, quarter-inch, pieces of tubing as a starting point and then put a liner in it. If you want to make a real gun, you can do that. But does that mean that you can use the drill bit holder that holds the little screwdriver bits, because it's quarter-inch in one way or not? Can this be done? Interesting question. Then we get to the next sizes. 0.2188 inch or 5.556 millimeter equals 7/32 inch wire gauge, number 3 compressed or number 4 expanded wire for electrical wiring. See also, that would make it to where you could make a purely copper bullet by just using wire, technically. I looked into this, someone was actually curious about it, so I'm just going to put it here. Number 5 and number 6 wire gauge, aka number 16 gauge, American format, is 0.7770 inch, aka 4.496 millimeter. Would work for pellet gun cartridges, or maybe if you needed to make 17 HMR all copper bullets. And why am I bringing that up? Can this work safely? Can you just form these? Sort of like, would you ever blast form a 50 BMG bullet just to make a 12 gauge shell? If you're desperate enough, you can. But then again, 12 gauge shotgun shells can be made out of paper. You don't actually have to use a metal casing except at the part where the gunpowder is. And I'd recommend gunpowder because smokeless powder might be a little too much for you if you're already thinking of using a 50 BMG to do some sort of test shooting. You might want to start with something that expands by burning rather than detonation. Deflagration versus high explosives. You're pushing high explosives when you use smokeless powder. Next, I'm going to go on to the next. When you pull the trigger of a single action weapon, it simply drops the hammer. In a double action weapon, pulling the trigger both cocks and drops the hammer, because, or is it that you do one action and it does two things? This is the test question. Without looking it up, which is it? When you pull a trigger and it immediately pulls the hammer back, cocks it, and then fires it. So you just pull the trigger and it does everything without it having blowback, without it having gas tubes. Is that single action or double action? This is a test question everybody gets wrong, even if they know the damn answer. No, really. Building ghost guns for the purpose of distress signaling or competitive sport shooting. Why you can't ship some toy guns to the states of New York and California unless you get an exemption from the Bureau, ATF, and parties and pizzas. Yes, toy guns that can technically chamber any damn thing you have to avoid. That's why Nerf is 50 caliber. Very few things are actually 50 caliber. I mean, really, it's actually one of the least used calibers. I'm not kidding. For the shell. Even 50 caliber bullets don't necessarily have a shell that's that size. They tried to pick a size that's so in between nobody could chamber anything. If it's too small, it won't fit, and if it's too large, it falls through. So you can't chamber it. That was the idea. I just thought I'd put all these in here, and I'm going to throw a bunch of links down below in the description so that you have them. I'm trying to dump all this information that's going nowhere, but might be useful for you. Random gun thoughts with Waptec, or whatever you want to call it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.